Thank you. Glad to be here.
So can you tell us about your background and how generally your journey started? How did you start your first company and then how you switched to venture field?
Yeah, sure. The first company, so I was a management consultant at BCG, serving primarily like banks and that sort of stuff. And then a friend of mine from BCG left to start a company, and the company was called Fee Fighters. It was a payments company, and I joined him. And the company started out as a marketplace for payments. So merchants gave us a few pieces of information, processors bid down for their business, and then we inserted ourselves into the marketplace and became a payment processor, kind of like what Stripe is.
Nice. So like how did you sell that company eventually? Like what was the
Yeah, so we were, Groupon was riding super high at that time. It was like a $20 billion company. They had approached us, and we were thinking about raising around, and they ended up presenting us with a decently attractive offer, and we decided to go down that path. And then there were a few months of negotiation.
And so now you have as well your venture fund. So like what learnings do you have from starting with running your own startups to investing into other startups?
Yeah, I would say, the biggest lessons are like what a founder needs to be. And I would say like there's really two things. You need to be quick. You need to be iterating, constantly shipping code, and have a sense of urgency. And then the second one is tenacity. Like when obstacles come in your way, you need to break through them. You need to be breaking through walls. And so like I think those are the things that I learned were important for success, and they apply for every founder.
So what is your investment criteria currently? Like do you invest into some payments, banking, card companies, lending?
All of the above. So we invest in fintech in general, and we've invested in companies in the banking stack. We've invested in companies in lending. We don't do a lot of direct lending, like companies that do lending directly, but companies in around that ecosystem. The reason we tend to stay away from companies that are lenders themselves are you typically need more capital to scale, more equity capital. So even if your business is doing really well, you still need to raise equity capital to get that debt capital, which I don't like. And then I also don't love that you're selling basically a commodity, money.
So like what's the investment criteria? Do you look on the team first? Like whether they have any exits or what's the experience, etc. Or like whether it's product market fit? So what's the most important thing for you?
We invest super early, so the most important thing is really the team, by far. We've seen great teams in bad markets evolve their way into a great company, and bad teams in a great market don't ever succeed.
And I've seen on your website you now invest as well into later stage companies like Series A and later. So do you just like make the next rounds of the companies you invested before in the seed stage, or you as well enter the later stage companies?
No, so the follow-on fund, the opportunity fund, is primarily for our own companies at a later stage. So we know a lot about them, and we invest.
And as well in terms of geography, where do you see the most innovation and the most opportunities?
In terms of geography or types of...
Yeah, like you based in US, now we're here in Singapore, you mentioned you as well invested in the company which is focused on Latin America. So can you tell where do you see the most innovation happening and the most market opportunities?
Yeah, I think we see opportunities all over the world. I think the things we look for are a big enough opportunity to build a big business. So like, can you expand to serve a population of over 100 million people? And is there a large and growing middle class? Those are the kind of things we look for in emerging markets when we invest.
So maybe you can tell some examples of the companies you invested in different regions?
Sure. So in India, we invested recently in a company called Fideo. It's a cross-border company, so they help exporters from India pay money. Let's see, in LATAM, we invested in a company called Yave. They are a digital mortgage company. Yeah, those are a couple of recent investments.
So how do you find your deal flow? Is it mostly from the other funds? So like founders can easily reach out to you and pitch to you? Or like where do you get the most of your deals?
We do get a lot from other funds. We're a lead fund, but there's a lot of sort of side funds that are non-lead funds that also invest in companies, and they say, hey, we're looking at this company, we really like the founder, maybe you guys should meet them. That's been a strong source. What else? I would say like folks reach out to us generally. I think we have like a growing brand that's very helpful.
And can you tell us about your most successful investments?
I don't know what my most successful one is, actually. I'd say exited maybe. We have a couple companies that exited. One company, actually, from an IRR perspective, we had a company that we invested in that sold in 2 years for almost 100 times what the valuation we invested at. So from yeah, it was crazy. From an IRR perspective, it's amazing.
What's the name of the company?
I actually can't talk about it, but from a dollars perspective, it wasn't as large. We didn't have that much money at work, but from an IRR perspective, it was incredible.
So what does make a company successful? What do they need?
Yeah, I think, it comes down to the founder, the stage that we invest. We're investing in great founders who are iterating fast and making shit happen.
And now there are as well quite a lot of talks around AI. There is a lot of hype around it. Do you see any intersection between fintech and the AI? And have you invested in any companies?
Yeah, I think a lot of fintech companies are using AI under the hood, and I think that they're not like AI companies; they're fintech companies, but they're using AI, and we see that across the board. With AI specifically, we have invested in a couple companies. One that might be interesting is a company called Basis. They build AI agents for accountants, and they sell them to very large accounting firms.
Interesting. Where they are based? And which one?
They're based in New York and selling in the US.
And as well, let's talk more a bit about crypto and blockchain. I know you got married in the Metaverse.
That's true.
Taco Bell. So can you tell about this experience and how did this happen?
Yeah, so I'm a fan of Taco Bell, the restaurant in the United States. They had a contest where you could win your dream wedding in the Metaverse, and I just thought it was a fun thing to do. So my now wife and I applied. This is over a year ago, and it was kind of like a fun thing that we did on a whim, just like make a quick video about yourself, and we submitted it, and then they notified us that we won this wedding in the Metaverse, and we decided to go through with it. It was super fun.
Yeah, that's cool. And did you invest into any crypto companies or cryptocurrencies on the personal side or fund side?
On the personal side, I hold a decent amount of Bitcoin and ETH. On the company side, we don't do a whole lot in this space. I think mainly like we're always looking for real world applications. And most of what we see, we don't see a real world benefit yet. But we have invested in a company called Kaliza. That's an API for access to stable coins that's based in Brazil.
Right, well, some payment providers which help with payment processing, including crypto companies. Are you for that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And as well, regarding you mentioned that you invested quite a lot in Bitcoin and Ethereum. So when did you discover crypto first, and what was your impression about it?
Yeah, so I think my first tweet about Bitcoin was in, I think like 2011.
Wow.
And it was I was very negative on it, which I said was like, governments won't allow it. It's going to be trouble. And, so I was negative on it for a couple of years. So I missed a big run up. And then I think I first started putting money in Bitcoin in probably 2013.
That's not that bad.
Yeah, yeah.
So why did you change your mind about it?
I just think it was like, it felt like there was enough interest behind it that I thought it was going to go. And I thought, like, even if I'm not a believer, this could attract a lot of speculative value. So I thought, I was curious. So I put money in because I was curious.
So do you hold till now, or did you sell?
I sold most stuff like probably a couple years later. It had like, I think it had 10x since then, but 10x since I invested. But then, you know, I missed an insane run up, but I kept on to a decent number.
And for you, is it still like just a speculation that like you bet that it will grow just because of the demand?
Store of value, speculative, yeah.
Did you invest into any other altcoins besides Ethereum?
Yeah, I have some done Solana, and through the years a few other things that, you know, I knew people working on various projects, but nothing in a major way.
And how do you generally oversee crypto market now, and like what are your predictions?
You know, I think I'm still like, right now it's functioning as an alternative asset class that's somewhat delinked from actual use cases, and I'd like to see a lot more of that.
And here at the Singapore Fintech Festival particularly, there are plenty of talks about tokenization, CBDCs, cross-border payments, now even all these international organizations like IMF and like all these traditional banks as well considering tokenization or the use of blockchain technology. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's super interesting. I think I'd love to see it. I feel like it's been a long time, but you are seeing more interest from some of these folks now.
And what other trends in venture investing in fintech do you see now? Like, what's your predictions for the evolvement of the market for the next years?
I think there's still a lot of capital out there. I think like I'm excited. Like there's a decent amount of capital out there, but less than there was a couple years ago. A couple of years ago, there was too much capital, which meant that companies had raised too much. If you have a lot of money, it actually kind of prevents you from getting to product market fit. So I think it was nice. And I think the other problem was a couple of years ago, every company that started and raised money, there were like 5 or 6 other companies doing the same thing. Now there's less of that.
So, like, what's your advice for the companies, how they reach their goals? What's your advice for the founders, especially when they're in a quite competitive niche, when a lot of other companies do the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like solve a customer need and find those customers that have that need. Simple.
So how can you differentiate if a few companies do the same and solve the same?
You have to be doing it better, or pivot into some other business. But you know, the best businesses don't have ultimately don't have a lot of competition because you out execute them.
And as well, what's your advice for the companies which are currently fundraising? What's the best way to reach out to the investors, and what's the right way to reach investors?
The best way is find a warm introduction, find somebody who knows the investor and can make an intro.
Great. Thank you for such interesting conversation.
Thank you.